This audio commentary is copyright WCReplays.com 2011, so don't go stealing it.
It's something that I have to do. I feel like owning news. The time of my defeat is through. I'm totally gonna own you. Instead of my fingers, I'll use my toes. I'll still play.
What's up, guys? After years of scheming and planning, I finally made it here to trial staff audio commentator person. My name is Marley. I'm Lux on the forums. I used to be Bob Marley for years and years and years. And by years and years and years, I mean since 2007, so that's like 4 years. Yeah, so I've kind of been here for a little bit. People know who I am. Maybe not. Probably not, actually. I started playing Warcraft 3 in like 2006 or something, and I stumbled on this site in like 2007. You know, I was just a random RT solo noob. Played in a couple of leagues for a couple of teams here and there, but nothing that special. I did do a couple of member audio commentaries, which, you know, got some pretty decent feedback. Although I think I became infamous for mispronouncing Necropolis, you know, Downware put this audio up on his, like, plucked from obscurity thread or whatever, and it was basically a strategy where you use Necropolis first against Night Elf on Twisted Meadows. Only I mispronounced Necropolis, I pronounced it Necropolis, and every one of like the 20 YouTube comments was, "You're pronouncing it wrong!" It was so annoying, but yeah. Hopefully I won't, you know, mispronounce too many things today, or hopefully the information will be so good that you'll be like, "Oh, great, I don't really care." We'll see. Let's see, I started playing StarCraft 2 since the release. I've been inactive from like January to June because I've been in school and had to study and shit because college is hard apparently. Need to do work. But I'm back now. I'm playing currently in a Diamond League. I'm kind of in that limbo, waiting to jump into the Masters League, but it hasn't quite happened yet. So we'll keep you guys up to date on that, and you'll see it in my signature, and it'll be epic, and I'll be so happy. And life will be good. So yeah, I've just been playing a lot of StarCraft this week, and hopefully it shows. Anyway, today, for my first audio commentary, I really had no clue what I wanted to do it on. So I decided to kind of give a basic overview of A, how the Zerg race plays, and B, how the Zerg race plays in relation to the Terran matchup. So this is probably not an audio geared towards like higher level players, and if by higher level you mean masters and grandmasters, it's certainly not geared towards you. But I think I would say it's for like the player who's trying to learn Zerg and having issues with like droning and things like that. This is probably your audio commentary, although I'll try to insert a couple of things here and there that you can actually learn if you're on like a diamond level or whatever. But the basis for this is going to be ZVT, as already stated, and it's going to be in particular ZVT mech play. And by mech play we mean Hellions, tanks, Thors, Banshees, basically anything that comes out of the factory or the starport. Mechs used to be a pretty damn popular choice, and it still is, although seeing all mech these days seems to be a little bit of a rarity, at least in my experience on ladder. But there are a couple strategies here and there that are annoying as hell, and if you're not scouting properly, are very easy to lose against. So this first replay will be Idra versus Select on Tal'Darim Altar. So let's get that queued up. Right now, I'm thinking we're going to go from everyone's point of view, because there are things on both sides I kind of want to point out. And at faster speed, you know, whatever the normal play speed is. And we're just going to go from the very beginning, because like I want to talk about things as they're happening. But ZVT Mech, a lot of things characterize it. Generally, as you'll see, mech almost always starts off with like an attempt at Hellion harass, and this can generally take a couple of forms. Namely, the most popular one I think is to go barracks and then get a reactor on that barracks and go get your factory up and while the reactor's building. So that way, by the time the factory's done, the reactor's done, you switch them up and then you start throwing Hellions down. And generally you'll send like 4 or 5 Hellions and you'll run them around the mineral line and try to do a lot of damage and kill a lot of drones. And if you don't, you're kind of screwed. But we'll kind of get into that as this game is progressing, because this is a little bit of a macro doozy, so there'll be a lot of downtime to talk about things pertaining to the matchup. But yeah, so you go from Hellions, then generally you'll go into either like Banshees or Tanks or Thors and all that good stuff. And what we're going to see here is Idra is going to make a lot of key decisions based on what he on how Select plays, and he's going to adapt to Select's mech play. So I hope you guys have this replay ready to go. If not, you know, you can pause this portion of the audio commentary and get synced up when you're ready to go. But we are unpausing in 3, in 2, in 1. Happy New Year, unpause. Okay, cool. So the first thing I want to talk about is how Idra's first decision, which is like, am I going to go 10 Overlord or am I going to go 9 Overlord? Idra just generally tends to go 9 Overlord. And the simple reason is just because if you go 9 Overlord, you're only going to have 2 larvae at your hatchery at a time. And what this means is your hatchery is always focusing on building a new larva. As a lot of players know, when you're at 3 larvae on a hatchery, you're not making any more larvae, and it's not like saving up a larva so that when you use one, another one pops up. No, it just stops. So if you stay at 2 larvae, you're being the most efficient you can be. We're going to see Lucira in the second replay. Ooh, gave it away. The second replay is Lucira versus TLO, Metalopolis. Lucira tends to go 10 Overlord and then Extractor Trick, so we'll hit that up when we see it over there. The economic efficiency really is not an issue. It's kind of like based on what style of play you enjoy. Anyway, so as we're going to see in this replay and in the following one, Zerg is primarily a macro-heavy, reactive race. That is to say, Zerg is not like, I'm going to make a shit ton of units and I'm going to wait for you to attack me. No. Zerg is like, oh, I see you are coming with my Overlord, I guess I should start pumping units out of my 4 hatcheries right now. And then, you know, you go from like 20 food to like 180 food in like 2 seconds, and opponents whine QQ to their mothers that Zerg is overpowered. That's generally the kind of race that it is. And the big question is, when can you get away with droning, and when can you not get away, when do you have to make units? The general rough answer is, when you see him moving out, you should probably be making units. Although there are a couple of key indicators. For example, if you're on 2 hatchery, as you see, Idra is opening 15 hatch here, which means he's going to be on 2 bases to begin. If you're on 2 bases, general rule of thumb, until the first Terran push comes in, you should be at around 40 drones. Unless you're intending to take a very fast third, which against mech play you shouldn't be, you should be around 40 drones, and then you can start pumping units, get ready for that push, and once you deal with that push, that's when you're going to want to take your third. Quick thing here. You notice this Overlord that's coming out to scout for Idra. He's going to bring it out here, and as soon as he sees the supply depot, he's immediately going to turn it around. And the reason, this is something very key, like when you get that opportunity to scout the Terran or the Protoss player with your first Overlord, you want to turn that mofo around as quickly as possible, because there's always a chance that he did not see your Overlord, and thus doesn't really know where you are. At a pro level, odds are they're going to see that Overlord, they're looking for it, but on an average kind of level, you want to turn that Overlord back and try to bring your drone out, which is what Idra tried to do here, but he saw the Marine and realized he wasn't going to get any real information. So since Idra doesn't really know what's going on in Select space right now, he's avoiding the planning fallacy and just thinking, what is the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario is probably the Hellion harass. So he's saying to himself, okay, we just have to assume that there is a Hellion harass coming, and the first thing he's going to do, well, after making a couple of Zerglings to go around scouting them out, he's going to throw down the Spine Crawler. And the reason why you throw down Spine Crawlers is because they do a hell of a lot of damage, and they've got great range, and they're a great deterrent to Hellions in general. So he's not going to be able to do a hell of a lot of damage because Idra's already assuming there are going to be Hellions, and very soon he's going to have his worst fears confirmed. But, okay, on the idea of this Terran harassment of Hellions, what you have to realize is when a Terran opts to do this kind of build, he's sacrificing economy in the sense that instead of doing like a 2 racks into expansion or 1 racks into expansion or whatever to stay on even foot with the Zerg player, he's basically banking on his initial buildup of Hellions to do enough damage to the mineral line such that he can survive a longer macro game. If you look at the economy right now, even though the Terran has mules and mules are imbalanced, as everyone knows, I don't really mean that, by the way. He's up 6 drones, and he's on 2 bases, which means that he now has like a 200, 300 rough mineral per minute lead. Meanwhile, you have these 3 Hellions, which each cost 100 minerals, and a Banshee on the way, if you look in back of this base, and they haven't been able to kill any drones yet. Notice that Idra, once again, thinking about the worst case scenario, it was like, okay, Hellions into what? The most popular thing, as I said earlier, was Banshee. So he's getting out that extra queen just so he can fend off the Banshee pressure a little early. I think what's a little more common on ladder is to get that cloak upgrade, but the cloak upgrade takes a little bit longer, which means that you'll have time to, like, as you see, Idra's done an extremely fast attack, and the reason why he did an extremely fast attack is because when he realized that his opponent was going mech harass, he realized he didn't need that many units. You know, this 1 spine crawler, these 2 queens, and Zerglings will do fine against these 5, 6, 7 Hellions and a Banshee, as you will see. So he attacks quickly, and he realized that, like, you know, by the time that Cloak would be done researching, he could have an Overseer up and running, and then Cloak is basically a wasted investment. But anyway, as I was saying, look, the command center for Select has just started, which means that for the past roughly 5 minutes, Idra has been way ahead on economy. So not only has Select not slowed down his economy at all, Idra has just been banking up mad gold. And what that means is he's going to be able to get up this spire, and he's going to be able to play a little bit more aggressively later on in the road. So when he gets his spire up, he'll be able to make, like, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 Mutalisks and use this to effectively contain Select, and that's when he's going to start building in his 3rd base. When he realizes that Select cannot get out of there, he is going to go expansion happy, and just expansion here, expansion there, expansion everywhere. Meanwhile, Select is over here. He's still like, okay, maybe I can do a little bit of harassment over here. It's like, it's kind of an adaptation of elevator harassment over here. Just expansions to see over and do a little more damage. But these 3 queens are going to be more than enough. He's going to uplift a spine crawler, and that's basically going to be the end of the Hellion harass. Yeah. One thing I will say is that if Select had opted to go Blue Flame Hellions, Idra probably would have had to get a Roach Warren up. Or at least have a couple more Spine Crawlers, because Blue Flame Hellions roast the shit out of Speedlings. They're just a very hard counter, unless you're getting perfect surrounds every single time, and even then it's not. Like, a group of 5 Hellions will dispatch with a ton of Zerglings very, very quickly. So, you realize that when you're in regular ladder play, and you see that tech lab on the factory, you're probably going to want to get that Roach Warren up, just in case. Anyway, okay, so the Spire's up. He immediately went for that upgrade, which is a great choice, because if you're going to do Mutalisk harassment, the attack upgrade significantly helps out the Mutalisks, because their attack's going to bounce and do, like, it's going to bounce twice, I think, and deal more damage per shot, so that's a huge investment. If you'll notice over here, if you turn on Select's point of view, you'll notice she's expanding in the bottom right corner. But if you turn on Idra's point of view, you'll notice his Overlord barely misses seeing the expansion at the bottom right. And if there's anything to really be learned by this, you really want to take your Overlords and you want to send them all the way to the mineral line. Because now Idra has no clue that Select's expanded down there. And he thinks he's on 2 base versus, he thinks he's about to be on 3 base versus 2 base with this economy lead. But really he's on 3 base versus about to be 3 base on about to be 3 base. And this would have been terrible if it wasn't for the fact that Idra's been ahead so far in this game. So just, you know, something to pick up on. Something I neglected to talk about while that was happening at the same time, Idra's Mutalisks came down and they hit this factory to see what's going on, and saw that Select was immediately building Thors. And this is continuing on mech play. You know, Thors are a great unit. They, you know, they have these great Schwarzenegger impressions. They, like, hit air like nobody's business. They deal a shit ton of damage on the ground, but they're not terribly mobile. So as soon as Idris saw the Thors come out, he was like, okay, I can basically keep him in his base using my Mutalisk harassment, and while it's going on, I'm going to go ahead and put down my third. And as you see, his third is almost done. I think he put that down as soon as he saw the Thor come out. And so now he's just playing this game of how long can I keep you in your base as he expands here, and he gets, whatchamacallit, a macro hatch. You know, really, when you're on 3 base, you can afford 4 hatcheries. In fact, when you're on 2 base, you can afford 3 hatcheries, depending on what units you're pumping. So, really, there's no reason not to do it. He's also throwing down his 4th expansion all the way up here. Ooh, how did I almost miss that? Yeah, like I said, as soon as he realized he has map control, he went expansion happy. And he does have map control right now. He's running a Zerglings around, spreading all that creep, which is another thing as Zerg you really want to do, because the differences between engaging on creep and not engaging on creep is something that. So here come the Mutalisks. This is why Select really cannot move, is because you're going to see these Mutalisks basically 2-shot missile turret. So if these Thors were to move out right now, that economy line, his main mineral line and his second mineral line would fall relatively quickly to this number of Mutalisks. So he's got to stay put, and they've really just got to macro it out. Select is really hoping that a sneak expansion, well, it's not a sneak expansion anymore because Idra is now aware of it, is going to help, you know, maintain the equality. Like, the longer this goes on, Select is getting closer and closer to equal. However, now that Idra's aware of it, this is something that, as Zerg players, you should be doing, or be trying to do. He's going to come in here, he's going to kill that missile turret, he's going to kill as many mules as he can before damage, and then get out of there. And the reason why doing this is beautiful is because mules basically stop the Terran player from ever catching up to you economically. So the more of them you can kill, the better it is for you. So, like, when you see a Terran mineral line, if you can kill, like, 2 mules, that's, like, almost worth killing, I don't know, like, 10 or 15 workers. So just kill those mules, make your life happy, and get out of there. Alright, cool. So while this is also going on, Idra is also getting ready to switch up his army composition. Right now he's been going very heavy Zergling. He was thinking about Banelings for a while when he saw the racks and the starport, because, you know, sometimes Terran players will switch to bio very easily by going medevac, marine, and start dropping all over the place. But as soon as he saw that wasn't in play, he got up the infestation pit, and he's now researching pathogen glands. And what you're really searching to get here are the pathogen gland upgrade and the neural parasite upgrade, because both of these upgrades essentially mean that any number of Thors become basically worthless. As you're going to see later on, as soon as Select tries to move out, as soon as this critical number of, like, you know, 10-ish infestors gets up, there's really not a lot you can do. Again, Idra is keeping tabs on the macro by... Oh no, where are the Zerglings going? Oh, I think he thought Select was moving out, so that's why he brought the Lings back. But it's still a good point. You should, like, send a group of Lings, like, when you're on 4 or 5 bases, you can afford to send a group of Lings in to harass, like, a mineral line. Even if you lose all the Lings, it's fine. Like, you know, 20 Lings is worth getting several mineral line kills. And as you can see right now, the Terran is pulling ahead in economy, but it really doesn't matter because he's been down for so long, and he still really can't move out, that by the time he does, Idra's already maxed out on supply. Idra's going to have the perfect counter for this army. In fact, if you go to units produced, there's 1 infestor right now. Well, keep an eye on units produced and see how many infestors start really coming up out of there. But yeah, so right now, you know, everyone's just researching upgrades, getting ready for this big... This is very, like, kind of beta days of Brood War, since that, you know, everyone's waiting for this big battle to decide the fate of the universe, whether the Terran will get infested by the Zerg or whatever. But, you know, Select's getting ready to move out here, and Idra knows that. So Idra kind of conveniently popped in with his Mutalisks, came in, was like, lol, I'm gonna kill a Thor, I'm gonna kill a factory, and then I'm gonna leave. And that, you know, Select was like, ah, god, I don't know if I can or can't do that. But if you watch this group of Zerglings, look at them here, directly south of Select's army, as soon as Select's army is like out of fire range, these Zerg are going to come in here, and they're immediately going to hit the mineral line. And the reason why is because if you look at the newest produce tab right now, Age is still getting up that number of infestors he needs, and Neuroparasite is almost done. So really, he's just buying himself time right here. With this, these Zerglings are coming in, they're killing units. These Mutalisks are killing more factories off. They're dealing a little damage, and then they're backing out of here because Neuroparasite is done, and he's about to have 7 infestors pop. So once his goal was achieved, which was buy enough time to get a perfect counter up, he, basically was like, alright, now I'm ready to fight. Zerg has this very strong ability to dictate where and when he wants to fight. And if you can take control of this by being really aggressive, it really pays off. Once again, if you see, Select is kind of expand here, this group of, 20 Zerglings just basically came in and was like, LOL, no to your expansion. So, Select's not getting that expansion up anytime soon. And this is the other beautiful thing, he's moving out here, and he's being forced to fight on creep, because he knows if he waits any longer, it's not going to be in his favor. So here we go, the infestors come up from the side, they take over all of the Thors. Look at all those beautiful blue Thors killing Terran units, and then he's going to kill them off at leisure. This is beautiful. This is why infestors rock. That was a huge investment that, Select just lost. I mean, if you look at the units lost tab, he's well into 11,400 resources. By the way, if anyone can inform me how resources are counted, 11,400, is that 11,000 minerals, 400 gas? Is there a way I can see this? Sorry, just a general question out there. And now, back to the game. Idri's going, expansion happy, and he's building this expansion over here. And it's basically why not? You can. It's good practice to get to those kinds of habits, and he's well ahead of economy now. So now he's got this group of not 20, I'm just kidding, 13 infestors, and he's basically ready. If you look between Select's natural and his third, he's built 3 more factories just to try and get up the number of units he's going to need for this next fight. But it really doesn't matter because, infestors, the cute little buggers they are, they come in and basically dominate everything. I think Idri's basically waiting for this one Broodlord to be done. If you look at the units produce tab, or production tab, there's a Broodlord getting ready to go, and now that Broodlord's ready, he's basically going to do some harassment on the mineral line while he's fighting. So, these kind of cutesy little things are really what make Zerg a great race to play. But yeah, so, he's making a couple more Broodlords, so they're going to come out from the bottom of his base, just to harass the mineral line while the mineral engagement is going on. It's one of those things where, if it wasn't this, if Idra wasn't this far ahead, these kinds of things could make or break games. Taking out a mineral line during a battle is huge. So yeah, there you go. The Broodlords are now in range, they're dealing with damage, he's trying to get up there, but instead, these infestors are going to come up. Because the Wallen isn't complete, they're going to easily get in there, and oh look, oh, everything's getting neuroparasited. But yeah, this is basically a courtesy push. It was basically over from the get-go. And the Broodlords are still doing damage here, so now there's no mineral line, and Select's just going to type GG and get out of here. And that's basically it. So, what did we learn from this replay? Well, Idra had a tentative game plan in mind. Idra was like, okay, I'm going to try and scout out what my Terran player is going to be doing, but, in the words of Idra, because Terran is OP, my overlords will generally not be able to scout much of anything. My drones won't be able to scout much of anything. So I'm just going to assume he's going Hellion Harass. I'm going to build that Spine Crawler. Going to keep him off my back, and I'm going to play a fairly defensive game. As long as I don't lose too many drones, this harassment's not going to pay for itself. I'm going to be ahead economy-wise, and as soon as his first real push comes in, or his first real, the first phase of his harassment is over, with, the Hellion Banshee, maybe a couple of Marines, I'm going to expand. And once I get that third expansion up, I can just get rolling on the macro ball, expand left and right, just, make sure, and as long as I'm macroing well with all my larvae, I should be in a set position, and that's exactly what happened. He adapted, based on what he saw. As soon as he saw Thors were coming out by the Beheezy, he stopped investing so much into Mutalisk and started getting massive amounts of infestors. Zerg is not a race where your number one goal is to be extremely efficient. your number one goal is to just get a shit ton of units in as little time as possible. You know what I mean? Like, Zerglings are not, like, all things considered, they're not an efficient unit. What makes them so great is that I can have, like, 20 Zerglings in your main killing shit, like, ASAP. You know what I mean? They're not, like, cost-effective, like Zealots, for example, who, when used well, can probably pay for more than their 100 minerals worth in battle. Zerg is primarily about, you know, okay, I think I'm going to need this many units, so I'm going to make 2 times that, and then I'm going to add 30, and I think that'll be roughly half of what I need for this engagement. And as long as you can get in that kind of mindset and keep your bases up, you know, like, in this, like, right now, it just got a shit ton of larvae all over the place, but that's because he's maxed out at 200. Unless you're at 200, you really shouldn't be having this much larvae. But it's okay, because, like, worst comes to worst, if he loses this entire army right now, Idra would be able to get up a fair number of Zerglings, Infestors, and all that. Well, actually, he's pretty low on gas right now, huh? Well, he was having a couple of lag issues. I guess maybe that would have been it. But, he's going to be able to get up a shit ton of units very, very quickly and recover from this push, even if it doesn't work out for him. So, you know, you basically got to be open, you've got to be able to scout, and then you've got to think about the worst cases possible. Like, you know, if it had turned out to be like a Marine Bioball drop, the Spine Crawler still would have been useful. You could have just put it, like, at the back of one of his mineral lines, and it would have been fine. So yeah, that is Idra versus Select. Let's get this second replay queued up. It's a little bit shorter. It's, like I said, Lucera versus TLO on Metalopolis. So let's get that replay going. I just organized all of my replays, so I'm very proud of myself. I've got ZVT, ZVZ, ZVP, and then I've got maps, like map files for each of my my replays. So it's great. I can find everything. So I'm going into my little Metalopolis file, and here we go. TLO versus Lucera. Now, what's going to be different about this game? Well, first of all, as I mentioned, it's slightly shorter. Which means that, oh, by the way, it's same deal. Everyone's point of view, faster at the 0 second mark, just at the start of the replay. This is a slightly less about, like, macroing very, very well, and more about being very aggressive with your units. Lucera, whom I'm sure everyone knows, is famous for, the way, like, the style of play he kind of brought into MLG Columbus. You know, I'm not the biggest scene follower, so maybe he was around for a while longer, but he was like, when I started watching replays again, I was looking at Lucera and I was like, wow, this is what Zerg looks like, you know, counterattacks, creep all over the place, you know, expansions up the Beheezy, and just, like, lots and lots of, like, you know, like, attacks here and there, and just, like, making, you know, throwing your opponents off balance at every possible angle. So, this is a kind of gameplay, like, you know, if you're not, like, a long-term, I want to, like, just macro my 4 bases and, like, wait for my one big battle kind of player, this is kind of the replay geared towards you. And, additionally, instead of, you know, seeing an all-Thor tech, which I feel like is falling less and less out of vogue, it's falling less and less out of vogue? Yeah, it's falling out of vogue. This is a much more common thing, or at least in my experience on ladder, of going for a tank marine push using, apparently it's called an elevator trick. I hadn't noticed that, but, like, when you siege up on the bottom and then drop units at the top, I guess that makes sense, you know, like elevator, ding dong. Anyway, so, you know, it's this marine tank push, and we're gonna see how Lucera deals with this. I mean, so, anything else? I don't really think so. Okay, so we're going to get this replay unpaused in 3, in 2, in 1, unpause. Alright. As I mentioned earlier, Lucera is not going to go for 9 Overlord. What he's going to do is he's going to pump drones till he's at 10 population, then he's going to make his Overlord, and then he's going to use the extractor trick the extractor trick basically is when you build an extractor, oh my god, build an extractor. Woo, for a second I went into Terran, I was like, reactor. No. You build an extractor, and then you build another drone, so from 9 out of 10 you go to 10 out of 10, then you cancel the extractor, so you're at 11 out of 10. And what this does is it's the same thing as going 9 out of 10 with the Overlord, in the sense that you're never at 3 larvae, and so you're still being efficient. But once again, this is very much, like, stylistic. Like, the amount of minerals you gain or don't gain is minute. It's not going to make or break a game. If you lose a game by, like, 0.5 of a mineral, then maybe this will help you out. So there you go, the extractor's going up, breaks it, and makes it, now he's at 11 out of 10, what a badass. You'll notice Lucira also has, you know, the joy and the luck, I don't understand why this never happens to me on ladder, of scouting out the base with his Overlord, and he's a little, once again, he's a little confused as to whether, he initially sends it back, but he's gonna end up scouting with his Overlord anyway. And the reason why is because on this level of play, as I mentioned earlier, they're looking for that Overlord. But on your everyday ladder plays, if you see this, pull that mofo back, because the odds are, like in Platinum and Diamond, even in Master, like at Masters levels, people will not, like, be looking for that Overlord. I've had games versus Masters players where they did not see it and they sent their SCV, like, around elsewhere. And I just got the fortunate advantage of being able to scout early, and life was good. You'll notice Lucira also decided to go with the 15 hatch, which is a very safe build, especially on this map. You know, that ramp is right there, so you can just pour out units. It's you know, great to have that extra income, and it also fits kind of Lucira's playstyle, having a lot of units very, very, very quickly. So he sees the barracks. One of the things I will say about the Overlord scouting is try to be a little bit more careful on Lucira with it. Like, Lucira's a boss, so he knows what he's doing. This Overlord's going to get down to the red by getting shot by the little man with the gun who just popped out. But he's going to survive. But, like, on everyday ladder play, like, I've lost so many Overlords by being not that careful. Usually I'd say when the barrack is like 3/4 of the way done, you should start hightailing it out of there. Like I said, this Overlord's barely going to survive, so if you want to learn those timings, go ahead, by all means. But, I don't know, it's not like, you know, you're not going to learn incredibly more. So he sends his drone out, and he indeed does see the factory. He's a little bit more successful scouting this time than Idra was. Oh, one thing I want to bring up for all you Terran players playing, if you notice what TLO just did, he threw down that reactor as the drone was walking by. And the reason why he did that was because I guarantee that drone was looking to make an extractor on the Vespian Geyser and just continue doing that so he could scout at other times. As a Terran player, you should never allow this. Build that reactor as soon as you see the drone coming by so you can shoot that mofo down and then cancel the reactor. Trust me, it's well worth the, like, 5 minerals you lose to stop that constant scouting. And as we see in the past, in the last replay, TLO is doing the same, like, reactor factory build. His reactor's a little slow, but he's added a twist, and that is instead of, like, investing in something like Banshees, he's going to throw in fast expansion. And what this basically means, well, like, usually I'll try and scout around the 5-minute mark, like, I'll send an Overlord in there and I'll let it die just to see what I can. You would see the command center right now, and you'd be able to think, huh, well, since he's adding a command center in there, I can safely assume that this harassment's going to be slightly less, because, you know, 300 minerals have gone to the command center. So, you know, maybe you could, like, rest a little easier and say, okay, Banshees are probably not coming in, I can probably invest a little bit more into Zerglings and not so much into Queen's anti-air. Safe assumption. But, if you notice, once again, even with the mules, Lucira's been ahead for these past 3 minutes in the mineral account. So, essentially, once again, since he's been ahead, and since he's still ahead, even with mules coming down, like a biatch, he's able to, like, you know, throw these Zerglings after the Hellions, no problem, you know, he's not worried about being efficient, he doesn't need to be efficient, he's been ahead on Econ so far, so he can just, you know, force those Hellions to back off the Speedlings. And once again, because they don't have the Blue Flame upgrade, Speedlings are a great counter versus Hellions. And now that he's forced, he's going to continue producing Zerglings, and once he's done with this set of Zerglings, he's just going to drone up, because he can. He knows that it's going to be a little bit, like, he knows it's going to be a little while before the Terran can send the next wave of harassment at him, so he can get away with droning for a little bit more. I'm going to send these Zerglings kind of just to poke in and see what's up, and he's going to see the tank, and he realizes, okay, definitely not Banshees, going to tank Marine pushing probably at some point. I think he scouts that second barracks. Does he? If you go to Lucira's point of view, he actually doesn't, huh? He sees the tech lab, though, so I think he can safely assume it's a barracks. Because, like, factory starport with the tech lab would be a very, very heavy gas build. And since he doesn't even have the second expansion out, I think it's safely assumed it's not. So now we can kind of see what TLO's tentative game plan is, and Lucier's like, okay, so I'm going to throw down this hatchery because I'm a boss, and I realize that I can have this hatchery up and running before this Marine siege tank push comes in. And now, like, you know, if you notice now, the command center is just getting up. As you can see, like, as you can tell by the units moving out, the command center is probably going to come up. I think he's going to check down here just to be sure, but he knows roughly when TLO's expansion went down, which means he can kind of be like, okay, I've been ahead on drones, like minerals, for this long, and he sees this push coming. So he's like, okay, I can now just spam Zerglings and throw money at the problem again, because I've been so far ahead economically. I spread my creep, you know, he sees those tanks sieging up, and this is kind of a push I think that most ladder players are like, oh shit, I really don't want to deal with this, you know. TLO's dutifully leapfrogging with his tanks, and, you know, now those tanks are getting really in position to do some fire. Lucier's just waiting for his veins to pop. Oh, he got the vein nest as soon as sub-tank Marines. And when you're dealing with this kind of push, you're really going to need either roaches or tanks. Either or kind of work, but you've got to have one or the other. Pure Zergling really isn't going to cut it against this unless it's superb micro, along with really good macro. But you see, TLO, like, what's really bad for Lucier here right now, right? Like, he's pulling off all these drones to deal with this, and you know, at this point, shoutcasters would be like, oh my god, he pulled off the drones, oh god, this is terrible, blah, 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 blah. But, realize that he's got this third expansion up, which means he's got slightly more, larva, and that's huge, first of all. And second of all, Lucier right now is still ahead of income, like, he's just losing out on the income war, and so he can pull off these drones to deal damage to these tanks. And now that this initial harassment is over, once again he's like, okay, so that push failed, I'm going to drone up. Like, he can, you know, he can now drone up and start saturating his second and start saturating his third as soon as he's done spreading all this creep out. Once again, spreading creep, you need to be doing that because, like I said, the difference between fighting on creep and not fighting on creep can make and break certain games, especially when you're in tier 1 and you don't have any of the speed upgrades. It helps immensely. So he's going to kill off this depot, to a bunker, and, you know, now TLO's kind of in the situation like, well, what am I supposed to do? You know, like, I'm barely ahead of minerals right now, but he's aware of that expansion. Like, if you go to TLO's point of view, he doesn't see it, but, like, I'm sure he saw Zerglings pour in from up there. So he's got a pretty safe assumption that Lucier's got that third expansion up, which means for in the short run, you know, thanks to mules, TLO is going to be ahead of Econ for a while, but Lucier is really going to power drone the shit out of this expansion right now, because he can. And now he sees that as soon as he sees TLO push out, which is right here, that's when he's going to start focusing on drones. Units, army, things that attack and go rawr. And the other advantage of having 3 queens spreading creep like this is you'll see he'll use a scan to kill off this stuff, but he can't kill it all off because there's like 20,000 creep troopers in the area, so it's going to waste more and more energy. And now, as I told you earlier, he's doing this little elevator thing where, you know, he retreats back in here and the tanks are doing damage. So, like, you really gotta be careful. Like, what I do is I have my queens in one control group and I just bring them out of the tank line fire, and then I wait until I get a very good group of units like this group of Zerglings here before I start streaming in another one. If you stream them in one by one by one by one, you're gonna lose units very, very quickly, and you're not really gonna achieve a whole lot of damage, especially with medevacs healing the Marines like this. As well as, another thing is when medevacs are involved, you want those queens focus firing on the medevacs, because medevacs are providing so much free DPS for the bio units. Also use those transfuses. Transfuses are brilliant. But now that as you're going to see, now that the medevacs are gone, this little army by TLO is going to fall pretty quickly into the Zerg game. Now, especially now that speed is upgraded on those banelings, they're just going to come in here, they're just going to dominate, especially because he's fighting on creep. And, I mean, this push is basically done. It looks, you know, it still looks scary, like, you know, there are tanks all over the place. But just realize that Lucierra has 3 bases running, which means that he has 3 hatcheries worth of larvae going up at any point, which means that he can, as long as he can afford to, he can produce as many units as is necessary to push this fight back. And if you look over here, you've got it's like 14 banelings going and a shit ton of Zerglings, so we really can push in here, take care of that turn, push in here. Oh my god, it's got 22 kills, 23 kills, 25 kills, but it's gonna die. And, you know, at this point, TLO is just kind of being like, shiznit. You know, that push failed to do any significant econ damage. Oh, fuck, oh my god, I completely forgot to talk about that. While that entire fight, okay, you can replay this from like the 14-minute mark, but while that entire fight was going on, Lucira, is it worth, okay, I'm just gonna, like, entertain me. Pause at 3, 2, 1, pause. I'm paused at 1550. If you rewind to, I think it was the 14-minute mark, yeah, if you rewind to the 14-minute mark, just for a second, you'll notice that there is a stream of Zerglings at the top of the map that I completely forgot to talk about. And we'll just put it on 4x speed and watch what these Zerglings are going to do. So 14 minutes, 4x speed at 3, 2, 1, unpause. Watch these Zerglings are going all the way around the map, and they're going to come into TLO main, and they're just going to wreak holy hell on his main mineral line. And so this is going to reduce the number of his workers dramatically to the point where there are points where he's not mining. This kind of thing is what TLO is famous for. And once again, I'm going to pause again at 15. I should have mentioned that before. So just set it back to 15, and then we'll go back to faster. Sorry about that. That was really necessary to point out. That is why there are all these Zerglings in Lucira's base right now. If you missed that like I did. I didn't miss it. I knew it was happening. I just forgot to talk about it because I just got so enraptured with the elevators and the tanks and everything. But that kind of thing is what Lucira is really, what Zerg should really become popular for doing. Those kind of, that's why you have to abuse Zerg mobility like that, especially versus mech play. Tank pushes like that are extremely slow, and he's not going to be able to get back there to defend in time, especially when he's trying to push you. So it's perfectly safe to take, 20 or so Zerglings and run them through here and do as much damage as possible. And if you look, for that, minute and a half or so, the Terran was basically getting outmined massively. And that's going to allow for Lucira to essentially build up slightly stronger amount of forces. And if you look at the army count, well, not the army, well, actually, we have an army count ticker, don't we? If we look at the army count over here, TLO is at 54 food, Lucira is at 113. That's 2 to 1. So essentially just realize that you've got to look for when those kind of opportunities present themselves. And especially with mech play. They present themselves often, and don't be afraid to do that kind of aggression. Anyway, 15-minute mark, unpause, 3, 2, 1. Once again, I apologize for completely missing that play. Like I said, this is my first staff audio commentary, my first audio commentary in a while, so a little bit rusty, but hopefully that won't happen again. Anyway. Back to this engagement by the main base. Lucira got that Spire up, and now he's just going to make a shit ton of Mutalisks. This is always a kind of go-to unit. I've done a shit ton of damage to my opponent. What can I do? I can go Mutalisks, because he's really not expecting them at this point. Lucira's shown no indicator to go Mutalisks at all so far this game. So it's going to be a while before he throws those missile turrets up, and plus, since he doesn't really have the money right now, it's going to be even longer, and this, kind of continued harassment building off of, that counterattack is beautiful. It's a beautiful transition for Lucira, particularly with his style of play. But it's not even going to get to that point, because Lucira's, just waiting for these Mutalisks to pop out before he engages this force. And once those Mutalisks pop out, he sees the Hellions come out. Once again, but Banelings are armored, so they're doing normal damage. And as soon as he sees the Mutalisks, he just types GG and gets out of there. So what to learn from this game? Essentially, that as a Zerg player, you should never be, you should always be, once again, you should always be spreading that creep. You should always, as soon as pushes are over, this is, I feel like this is essential core. As soon as pushes are over, you are safe to drone for a couple of rounds. If anyone played Warcraft 3, it kind of related to the Blade Master in the sense that when the Blade Master, was harassing you, there, like, you would nuke him, or you would, like, you know, hit him and deal a lot of damage to him, and then he would run away. And then there was that window when, like, the Blade Master had to heal up with clarities and healing salves and all that jazz, where you could go ahead and harass something big, while the Blade Master, because the Blade Master, like, if he showed his face again, he was going to get his ass handed to him. So it's kind of like that in that sense. Like, once you defeat all the Terran or the Protoss or the Zerg forces, it's going to be a little bit before the said army can engage you again. And this is a perfect time to start droning up. And you saw Lucir is a master at this. Every time, like, he realizes that he can drone because he's finished off a push, he does it. And he just drones, like, 5 drones at each base, and boom, before you know, he's at, like, 60 workers, while, you know, TLO is still struggling to stay at, like, 40. So that'd be the one big lesson. Another big lesson would be, don't be afraid to counterattack. Like, we saw this slightly with Idra, in the sense that Idra, you know, you saw when Select was trying to take his 4th, I think it was. Yeah, it was his 4th base. You know, Idra was like, LOL, no, I'm going to send like 20 Zerglings and just delay and cancel that completely. Same idea here. If mech play is becoming like the norm for your Terran during the match, feel free to make like 20 Zerglings in some expansion, and then like route them around the map. You saw how Lucira routed them. He didn't send them straight towards them. He sent them like, you know, the opposite part of the map, all the way down and around into the natural. And, you know, you can get away with things like that. It'll delay like his reinforcements. It will delay his ability to to really mine, because you saw he had to pull workers off. At some points there, he wasn't mining at all. And it'll probably force him to maintain some part of his forces right around his choke areas to make sure you can't do that kind of stuff. Which means that they're not focusing on you, which means that you have less of an army to deal with by your base. It's these kind of tricks that Zerg can get away with that a lot of other races really cannot. And it's that kind of style of play that's really going to help you kind of bring your game to the next level. And you really don't have to micro it that much. You just, like, I guarantee you, Lucira set those, he set the markers for his Zerglings, you know, the path to take them, and he got them over there, and he hit A move, and he left it there, and then focused on what was going on. That was it. That was, like, all the micro required. So, you know, feel free to try and experiment with that stuff in your games, especially since, like, you know, practice makes perfect. So even if you lose a couple of games because you can't really control everything at once, it's good practice and it's a good habit to be in. Alright, so those were the 2 replays. I guess I could talk about one, like, the one other transition I would think about as a Zerg player to keep in mind is, I don't know how prevalent this is nowadays, but when I used to play a lot, and actually I haven't seen this much in my past week of laddering, which is saying something because I've played something like 100 games in the past week, Terran would do this timing where he would get the barracks up, he would get his expansion up, and then he would like fast tech to like this Thor Marine tank push on 2 factories, and it would come roughly as, like, you were done teching to your lair, so maybe around the 10-12 minute mark. And if you weren't prepared for this, it would do a lot of damage. The only thing I would say to that is, like, you kind of have to get roaches in that kind of scenario, and you just have to be careful. Like, you know, once you scout out the 2 factories, it's kind of a dead giveaway. You just build a shit ton of roaches, build a shit ton of Zerglings, and just let them engage, because since, once again, Zerglings are not terribly efficient units, but they're also good at making big units like Thors, which hit for like 50 damage, completely inefficient because each shot is overshooting slightly with 35 HP Zergling, and generally you'll be able to come on top of engagement. Anyway, that was my first audio commentary. Damn, it was a doozy. How long is this going to be? It's approaching the 50-minute mark. I feel like stop. If you have any questions, comments, queries, flames, trolls, they can all be directed towards my WCR account, Lux. Just send me a little private message. You can send a private message to me online too. My account thing is on my signature, although I don't know if it has my character number. But if you want to play some games, like, you know, you can message me. I'm always up for that kind of stuff. You could also, like, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also email me at luxstarcraft92@gmail.com. I'm going to try and go ahead and make the guarantee that unless I get a million questions, I will answer everything I get. And if I don't know the answer to a question, I will ask other people, because if you are asking that question as a Zerg player to me, I probably should know the answer, and we'll find out for myself, and we'll find out for you. So yeah, let me know what you thought about this. Certainly let me know what else you want to see in the future. I have a couple of ideas for my next audio commentary, but if 20 people tell me they want to see something, I will scrap that and I will do whatever audio you guys want to see. I'm an audio commentator for the people. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it wasn't awful. And yeah, so hope summer's going well for most of you guys. This is Lux signing out.